Hey, welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here. Today we're doing the first of the Guild War tier rankings. This is something I intend on doing basically bi-weekly, or if I notice, noticeable shifts in what is being picked for the Guild Wars. And this was something that Cabbage had reached out to me, that I kind of announced that he thought I'd be a good candidate to take over in the global side of things, because we have diverged a fair amount from the Japanese version of the game, where we have some exclusive characters, some X upgrades that they didn't at their point in the game, things of that nature, vision card releases, etc. So this is what I'm going to be doing and how it's graded. So tiers SS, which is the top, and through A, are characters that are most often featured on attacks and defense through not only the top 5, but a selection of the mid-tier guilds as well. Champion 1 and above, that's really the majority of the player base to some extent. So those of you who are under Champion 1 and below, a lot of this still applies. It's not true. It's just you also have more variability in there as well, because of the resources that people typically play with from in those guilds, and the cohesion that the guilds have for putting together attacks and defenses, things of that nature. Tier B are characters which are featured, but I do have a little bit of a personal bias in how effective they are based upon theory, testing, practice, etc. So it's not that they're bad or good. They are still featured, not as prevalently, but I also do have a little bit of analysis as to why they're B and not A. Tiers C and D are purely hypothetical. They're characters that I may have seen once or twice, and if I have, I've also put in a few characters that I think could be a little more prevalent. And then any units not featured are either, unfortunately, power crept, where they just aren't in the balance of the game, or they're not feasible just given the meta and the state of the game, and the map and things of that nature. Well, it's currently going on for, again, kind of Champion 1 and above. And so I have gone through 15 guilds, all through the top 25 and Champion 1 and above, and I am able to see what they're running for attacks and defenses. We've had 3 full days of testing and Guild Wars, this and that, so I'm pretty comfortable so far with the outside of this. And although it might change given, releases of things, we'll update the rankings when that happens. So, getting into it. SS tier, this is the meta. Black Rose Helena, Dwayne, and King Mont, absolutely. They are the meta, they have been the meta. There are some trending up and down. I think King Mont is trending down just slightly, and Dwayne is trending upward. Black Rose Helena is still very much solidly in the mix, though this map, not only is she still offensively potent, but she actually does use the Arithmetician healing abilities a little bit more, because the range of the map, she's not always in attacking range. Dwayne X is just a positively massive upgrade, and he does synergize with her very well. And King Mont still does have a place, just because statistically he has an incredible health pool and a lot of utility in his kit. So this is by far the best, top everywhere. The S tier, Garvel still does have a place. He's a little bit more glass cannon because he is weak to magic, so Black Rose Helena obviously does have an edge on him if not played properly and laned correctly and agility tuned and whatnot. But he's still very powerful, and particularly so not only because he also does synergize with Dwayne and synergizes with a lot of the cards that Black Rose Helena uses, and they can use that magic synergy. But the other S unit characters here, Venera, Ketone, and Zazan, have been creeping up more and more and more. The thing about this guild map, because it's so extremely long, and there are some incredibly abusable flank routes on the sides of the maps that these evade characters have the move and jump to use, you're going to see a lot of laning manipulation, where essentially these characters can get up and down the side of the map very quickly, skew the way some of those interactions initially start off. Although the meta is very, very strong, and although Black Rose Helena Vision card does give accuracy, they are still not the most accurate characters. And of the 3 in the top, even Black Rose Helena's guaranteed hit, the way the power creep has gone for evade units, it doesn't kill them by any stretch of the imagination. So although there are, times where they need to finish the battle quickly, because the longer the battle goes on, the less evade does well. These evade units are featured prominently through a lot of the top of the game and the middle of the game for reasons stated. So, Zazan has turns where he can use both of his re-raises potentially, or use bells and something else, and Ketone the same thing, and Venera the same thing. So, definitely prevalent, and that's part of why Garvel is still prevalent, that because evade is an option, his Energist job is very potent against them. The A tier. So these are characters that are materially present. I do see them fairly often. To how successful they are, still kind of up in the air, but they're definitely around enough. Rain still does have a place, just given that King Mont is still really popular, so there's some fire synergy, given that Helena and Garvel are potentially around, so there is some magic tanking to be done. He's not the most accurate character, so he does get danced on by some of the evade units, but other than that, Gilgamesh too is still present, less so if only because Dwayne and Kingmon already both have slash resistance down, and because we're seeing a decrease in Yuna's, and although she's still here, it's just a decrease overall, the re-raise on the Kotetsu isn't as valuable as it was when he was prime, and then obviously with Kingmon still being in the mix, Gilgamesh is still technically weak to that fire element, particularly if Rain is still around. So Gilgamesh too, it's just kind of a step down. Yoon is still present. She does have some turns where she can obviously get the re-raise up, move, and still do her blend of hitting and healing. And because Evade is popular, Yuna's guaranteed hit resources are very valuable. So she does still have a place. It just takes a little bit more AI tuning. Sakura, kind of the same idea. I have seen her used in a lot of the monolight comps because that's kind of where it's going. I don't know exactly how incredible she is per se, but because people are starting to use Warrior of Light, who's also featured here, and some of the extra light characters, she does seem to fit into that synergy overall, so she is being used. Titus still definitely has a place where he does have a lot of great support abilities in the turns getting to the middle of that team fight, where he's got Heistaga and he's got the attack and defense up. He does have a lot of the unit, defense breaks, and he's got the physical barrier. He's not the strongest against magic, but he's not terrible against magic, so Titus definitely still has a place in the game. Warrior of Light 2, where now he's got the turns to ramp up where he can use his shield, he can use Brave Presence. There's some difficulty in fine-tuning the AI and the agility, but he definitely benefits from a longer map. And then 2B will always be strong if Kingmon is around and Slash is around, because she does very well for nerfing some incoming slash damage, doing slash resist, berserk resistance. She's got slash resist penetration. She is also technically an evade unit, just not as, I'll say, great as the S tier, if only because her AI doesn't really cater to the flanks that they do per se, where if you have her resistance field on, she's going to go to her teammates instead. So 2B definitely still great though, it's materially present. Now the B tier, I've seen a handful of times. They're here because, I'm sorry, and more, apologies. I'm actually putting more here, and now I've not seen her at all anywhere in the Guild Wars because it's just too soon to tell. But if I'm guessing here, this is the one place where I'm going to guess on this tier. I think she's A for now, if only because she is pretty weak against a lot of the physical, and she's not the most accurate character in the game. So if evasion is on the rise, she's going to suffer. But as long as magic is still present, more will be present as well. So I'm keeping her here tentatively. The B, this is around, but I have seen inconsistent results where I have seen some people try missile attack units. Problem tends to be they don't move in conjunction well enough throughout the map, where oftentimes enemies can either not turtle, or if there's flankers, you get inconsistent results because the missile units respond very differently to a bunch of different comps. Auron is still very strong against magic, but obviously ice can be kind of touch and go with some of the fire units, but overall he's still a really great unit, has a guaranteed hit, and does really well overall in the map because it is semi-flat. There's some 1 and 2 changes in elevations, but in the middle, pretty flat. Diare I've seen because, again, water unit strong for some of the fire. Magic resistance is really powerful. She's got her CT up on her limit break, so I have seen some uses for her there, and she obviously has the healing AI as well. Kane I have seen in some instances where, again, he has that jump where he can traverse the map pretty easily, and he does benefit from bells and the lack of pierce resistance currently in the game per se, because slash and magic is so prevalent. He's also decently accurate, but he also does counter Black Rose Lander to some degree, particularly because the Demon Wall vision card is also 20% magic dark resist. So Kane I've seen around, I just don't know how potent. Same thing for Luel and Salir, technically, where they both are incredibly great magic units, and they're great physically in terms of defense and barriers and resisting that nature, but magically they suffer just a little bit. And so because of the amount of Helena in the game, I've seen some inconsistent results with them where sometimes they can just straight up get one shot by her if not properly equipped. But because of the rise of innovation, they are definitely still viable, just not that degree. And then Freya, I have seen some decent usage for her, but because she lacks any defense stat at all, I have seen her get chunked down really, really easily by a lot of the physical units. So she's one of the best magic tanks at the moment. She does really well with the ramp up time getting to the middle. I've just seen some inconsistent results overall. So to me, she's featured about as much as the B characters, but still inconsistent results overall. Now, the C tier, I think these characters are feasible, but not incredibly well tested. So Ayaka is still a great healer. And for those of you that are going for those, hard-hitting DPS still, she has access to full life and protect and shell and haste. Limit break is a great heal up. Suna, she's got a bunch of things in her kit that's still functioning really well with the healing. It's just a matter of getting the right comp to go with it. I haven't seen her use that often, but obviously I think she's still technically feasible. Corwell, too, with the rise of the evade units, particularly Zazan and Ketone, he obviously does a great job accuracy-wise countering them. It's just, again, purely hypothetical that, missiles kind of touch and go, so whether he fits in with the theme of the map remains to be seen, but on paper, he technically does well against a lot of these top end of the game units. Same thing with Mashri, where she's obviously takes a lot of AI tuning and you need the right setup for her, but if you're going to be doing a mono light comp, like we're seeing with Warrior Light and Yuna and Sakura to some degree, she is a great support unit where she's got high defense and spirit. She does have the vision card of a Carbuncle, which is great for missile resist, which Corwell has missile attacks. It's also got some other, defense break mitigation, so she might have a play. She's also got Dark Veil on her sub job too, so she does have some of that dark unit resistance, which she can amplify for the team. It's just that light overall is relatively weak to dark, so I don't think light in general is still all that strong. And then old, I only have him here because as long as King Mont and potentially Rain are viable, putting him in the mix with the Phoenix card gives him 35 pierce resistance up. You can stack him relatively decently against both Slash and Magic, and technically because there's a lack of pierce resistance, as we talked about earlier with 2B, there is a place where he can still, absolutely dominate Black Rose Lane in particular for the Pierce weakness, but also some of the other characters, not Dwayne, but King Mont and some of the evade units. He's not terribly accurate, but you can actually get him to a place where he will be very accurate. And then finally, he really does benefit from the ramp up time where he can use bells, and then he's got his self buff crit rate and attack up, and then he's got store on the monk ability, so he does really well in the ramp up time. And then finally, I say niche, but maybe some upside. I have Winter Venera here. She's EX list, and probably one of the few on this list that is EX list, but she is a super, super strong magic tank. And so if you are running something like the Ketone and Zazan comp, and you need someone to draw a little bit of aggro and still do well against magic and a little bit of slash, Venera might be the person, particularly because if you're using Secrets to the Heart, she also has technically got some good evasion on her, where she will also evade some attacks. So she's definitely power crept for sure, but I think there's a world where she's got some upside. And then Ziza, kind of the same idea, where if you're having these evade units go up and down and you're looking for those duels to take with them, she is fairly strong to that degree where she can also do some of those flank routes. She's got a unit debuff, so she can usually win a lot of 1v1s. She's got, a bunch of self buffs in store in terms of ramping up her attack power. The only downside, obviously, and she's got the strike damage, which is great against both Dwayne and King Mont, but she's so incredibly weak to magic that the fact that Black Rose Lane is in the SS tier, Ziza's still way down at the bottom because any risk of magic is just going to poof, take her out of the game. So niche, but some upside. So that's the Guild War tier rankings in a nutshell. I have seen, a couple other characters one off here and there, but so immaterially so, not worth mentioning here, and I don't want to, bloat the list more than I have to, but this is kind of the state of the game. It makes a lot of sense given the map, makes a lot of sense given the meta. We will have hopefully some X upgrades and some vision cards come out that will hopefully turn some of this on its head, and obviously as people build more in Corwell, we might see some of the shift as well. But for now, this is where things stand. So down in the comments, agree, disagree. If you think I added something or misstated something, please feel free, because obviously this is also a collaborative effort. I have a lot of info and knowledge in the game. I've done my research and talked it over with guild members, but I'm not a perfect system. So if you guys disagree, by all means, poke holes in things and we can get to the bottom of it. Because at the end of the day, I want to give you guys accurate information, and we can all collaboratively decide on, what the state of the game is. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this was informative, and I'll talk to you all soon.